वासुदेवाय।
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
नारायणं नमस्ते नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमा श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकी नन्दनाय च नन्दगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। Hare Krishna. Would someone like to read this? Okay, I can recite. Savayam yat padamatra suryo
Vayam Yat
Savayam yat
Padamatra
padatra
Surayo.
surayo
jitendriya nirjitamatarishvana
jitendriya nirjitamato
Jitendriyanirjitamatarishvana.
ishvana
पश्यन्ति भक्ति युक्तलिता मालात्मना
Pashyanti
Pashyanti
Bhaktya
bhakti ukali
Utkalitatmana.
atmana
नन्वेष सत्त्वं परिमार्ष्टुमर्हति
nanvesha
Nanveshatvam
sattvam
parimarshtumarhati.
parimarshtumarhati.
Anyone wants to read? Okay. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Here is the same Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose transcendental form is experienced by the great devotees who are completely cleansed of material consciousness by dint of rigid devotional service and full control of life and senses. And that is the only way to purify existence. Purport: as is stated in Bhagavad Gita, the Lord can be known in his real nature by dint of pure devotional service only. So it is stated here that only the great devotees of the Lord, who are able to clear the mind of all material dust by rigid devotional service, can experience the Lord as he is. Jitendriya means one who has full control over the senses. The senses are active parts of the body and their activities cannot be stopped. The artificial means of the yogic processes to make the senses inactive has proved to be abject failure, even in the case of great yogis like Vishwamitra Muni. Vishwamitra Muni controlled the senses by yogic trance, but when he happened to meet Menaka, a heavenly society woman, he became a victim of sex, and the artificial way of controlling the senses failed. But in the case of pure devotee, the senses are not at all artificially stopped from doing anything, but they are given different good engagements. When the senses are engaged in more attractive activities, there is no chance of their being attracted by any inferior engagements. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said that the senses can be controlled only by better engagements. Devotional service necessitates purifying the senses or engaging them in the activities of devotional service. Devotional service is not inaction. Anything done in the service of the Lord becomes at once purified of its material nature. The material conception is due to ignorance only. There is nothing beyond Vasudev. The Vasudev conception gradually develops in the heart of the learned after a prolonged acceleration of the receptive organs. Vasudev conception gradually develops in the heart of the learned after a prolonged acceleration of the receptive organs. But the process ends in the knowledge of accepting Vasudev as all in all. In the case of devotional service, this very same method is accepted from the very beginning, and by the grace of the Lord, all factual knowledge becomes revealed in the heart of a devotee due to dictation by the Lord from within. Therefore, controlling the senses by devotional service is the only and easiest means. Hare Krishna. Sorry, can you give me one?
Sure, Mataji. So we can read the translation once again of this particular shloka in the meantime. Mataji is coming. So here is the same Supreme Personality of Godhead whose transcendental form is experienced by great devotees who are completely cleansed of material consciousness by dint of rigid devotional service and full control of life and senses, and that is the only way to purify existence. So first thing here is that Lord has transcendental form. Second thing is this form can be experienced by devotees. Third thing is what is the prerequisite for such a devotee? The prerequisite is that they should be cleansed of material consciousness. Material consciousness may be there, but has to be all cleansed. Then next is rigidly fixed in devotional service. Tivrena bhakti. You have to perform very rigid devotional service. And one of the aspects of such rigid devotional service is control of senses. Full control of life and the senses. And this way, this is the only way to purify the existence. This is there in translation. Mataji, are you back?
Yes, Prabhuji, sorry about that.
Over to you.
Yeah, so Prabhuji, that is the summary that in the translation they're saying that one has to completely cleanse one's material consciousness. And Prabhupada is elaborating in the purport that that cleansing of material consciousness first means controlling your senses, so becoming a jitendriya, the one who has controlled their senses. And it is, and then he's giving the process of controlling those senses. He's saying that you cannot just abstain the senses from doing something, because they always have to be in action. So you have to give them the higher taste. We understand that point by now, I think, that we have to give them some higher engagement, and engagement in devotional service. And then by that devotional service, like various aspects of devotional service that we try to follow, A, B, C, D, or the 9 processes of bhakti. So by that, we engage our senses and slowly purify them. And ultimately, one comes to the level where they realize that Vasudev is everything, Vasudev Sarvamiti. And so they start to realize, so their material nature is purified, and by faster process, by accelerated process, which is bhakti, they will come to this realization of Vasudev. So they can then have the experience of the transcendental form of Krishna, which is otherwise very difficult. Otherwise, it takes other yogis ages and many births, many lifetimes, and very slow, rigorous process of austerities and yoga, and they climb the ladder slowly through the karma yoga, gyan yoga, ashtanga yoga, and finally reach the bhakti yoga. But if we can take up the process of bhakti yoga from the very beginning, then we can skip those steps, or actually make them more pleasurable, and reach that process. The ladder, that one has to climb actually becomes an elevator, so that we can go faster to the end goal. So controlling the senses, and Prabhupada concludes, by devotional service is the only and the easiest means. Prabhupada is quoting many shlokas here from Bhagavad Gita. He has not mentioned them, but he's quoting many different ones, like this one from chapter 2. And then Jitendriya word also comes in 5th chapter. Um, so that's all I have to share, Prabhuji. Please add or correct. Anybody else wants to share anything? not, we can go to the next one.
Yeah.
So the devotees, pure devotees of the Lord that have already cleansed their material consciousness by the way of rigid devotional service and who have full control of their senses, who have purified their existence, will be able to experience the transcendental form of the Lord. Okay, we'll go to the next one. Anyone wants to read this?
I can try, Mataji. Anybody wants to read?
Mataji, go ahead, please.
Okay, Mataji, I'll read. Sava ayam, Mataji, with tune Brahma Samhita.
I think it's the normal.
Okay.
Um,
Sava ayam sakhya anugita satkatho.
Mataji, you can also say like this. Sava ayam sakya anugita satkatho vede
yes, thank you, Rabbi.
Yeah. Ya eka isho
Mataji, you can start from the
jagat.
beginning. We'll repeat after you.
Okay. Sava ayam. Oh my.
Sava
Sava ayam sakya anugita satkatho.
Savayam
Ayam Saki
Sakhi
Anugita
Anugita
Satkathon
Vedeshu guyeshu chaguyavadini.
Vedeshu
Vedeshu
Guye
Guyeshu Chaguya Vagiri
Ya eka isho jagat atma leelaya.
Ya Eka Isho Jagadatma Leelaya
Srajatya avataya atinatra te sajjate.
Rajati.
Sajjate
Avati
Avatyati
Ati
Natatra
Natatra
Sajjate.
Sajjate.
Okay, the translation.
I can read translation.
Yes, Mataji, please. Yes, go ahead.
Translation. Oh dear friend, here is that very personality of Godhead whose attractive and confidential pastime are described in confidential part of Vedic literature by his great devotees. He is the only who creates, maintains, and annihilates the material world and yet remain unaffected. Purport. 1 second, please. Yes, it is stated in the Bhagavad Gita. All the Vedic literature are glorifying the greatness of Lord Sri Krishna. Here it is confirmed in the Bhagavatam also. The Vedas are expanded by many branches and sub-branches by great devotees and empowered incarnation of the Lord like Vyasa, Narada, Sukdev, Goswami, the Kumaras, Kapila, Prahlada, Janka, Bali, Yamraja. But in the Srimad Bhagavatam, especially the confidential part of his activities are described by the confidential devotee Sukdev Goswami. In the Vedanta Sutra or Upanishads, there is only the hint of confidential part of his pastime. In such Vedic literature as Upanishads, the Lord has expressively been distinguished from the mundane conception of his existence. His identity being fully spiritual, his form, name, quality, and paraphernalia, etc., have been elaborately distinguished from the matter, and therefore he is sometimes misunderstood by the less intelligent person is impersonal, but factually he is the supreme person, Bhagavan, and, and he is partially represented as the Paramatma or impersonal Brahmana. Hare Krishna. Anyone want to explain?
Mataji, please share your thoughts.
Well, what I got this is that there are all these Narada, Vyasa, Sukdev Goswami, Kumaras, and Kapila Bali. They all have described the Lord in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And well, actually, the Sukdev Goswami have done this very confidential part of his pastime. But it seems like that his identity, God's identity, is fully spiritual. His name, quality, and from matter. So sometimes some people misunderstand God, but then the intelligent person knows that God is the one, He is the Supreme Bhagavan. Hare Krishna. You guys can share more. I have hard time speaking now.
Okay, thank you, Mataji. Yeah, so that is what they're saying, that the confidential parts of the Vedas and Upanishads, and especially Srimad Bhagavatam, describes the very attractive pastimes of very confidential pastimes of Krishna, not just the mundane conception, but more attractive, more intimate exchanges with the devotees. And so his great devotees that are also the empowered incarnations have described their interactions with Krishna. For example, in Srimad Bhagavatam, we'll read all these interactions with the Narad Muni, Shukdev Goswami, Kapil Muni, Prahlad Maharaj. So many exchanges will come. And this is the same, this is the Supreme Personality of Godhead who creates, maintains, and annihilates the material world. So he's sustaining, he's everything is situated on him. He's pervading, all pervading the material world. He's expanding himself into everything, and all char and achar in the material world. The whole cosmic manifestation depends on Supreme Personality of Godhead for its existence, but he remains unaffected. So, like Queen Kunti also says, right? Antar Bahir Avastitam. So he's situated inside and outside of all the material creation, everywhere, within and without. Sri Shupnashad also says something like this, that you are within and without. And so, Bhagavad Gita upon me, but I do not depend on anything. So he does not need the material world. He does not have any object of favor from anybody or object of envy from anybody, but he sustains them. He maintains them, and he's completely transcendental to the material world. But he comes and exchanges these loving relationships with his devotees, and those can be found only in the very confidential parts of Vedas, like Srimad Bhagavatam, which is beyond the mundane conception of his existence. So that is difficult for a common man to understand unless they get this knowledge from pure devotees of the Lord, how Krishna can have this beautiful two-handed form, because everybody just imagines a God as this wonderful, astonishing, either universal form or in the Chaturbhuj roop or right Virat roop. So that kind of image comes to mind, which is a more mundane conception. But the pure devotees of the Lord understand that Krishna has this beautiful two-handed Shyam Sundar Tribhang form, with which they have beautiful exchanges, loving exchanges. Hare Krishna. Anybody else wants to share?
You did very good job.
Thank you, Mataji. Would anyone like to add? Prabhuji, if he's available. Okay. It reminds me of that 10th chapter again, how Arjun comes to this realization that how this he actually goes in backward fashion. He was already relishing the two-handed form of Krishna. He was already enjoying the more superior rasas of Sakhya ras, and he was like in a previous shloka we read, right? Pandavas were so fortunate that they were able to sit with Krishna, eat with him, touch him, talk to him, hear from him, all kind of exchanges that one has with their intimate friend. They were having those exchanges with Krishna. Yet in that time comes in Bhagavad Gita when Krishna tells him, "Oh, everything comes from me. I am the source of all material and spiritual world." And Arjun has this moment. Oh no, you are the supreme personality of Godhead. You are the Param Brahm, Param Dham, Purusham, Paramam Bhavan. So he has this Purusham Shashvatam Divyam Adi Devam Ajam Vibhum. So he has this moment. Oh, you are the supreme personality of Godhead. So he goes from this loving Sakhya ras, intimate relationship of friendship, to this feeling of wonder and awe and reverence towards Krishna, like the Aishwarya Bhav. Typically, Krishna likes the relationship of pure friendship, like he has with Gopas, not no just complete Madhurya ras, right? No Aishwarya Mishrit. Mishran in it. But now Arjun is actually having this Aishwarya kind of feeling where he's thinking, oh, Krishna is the supreme personality of God, and he actually apologizes to Krishna that I was sometimes insulting you, sometimes I'm calling, sometimes I'm misbehaving with you like a friend, and please forgive me for that. So he goes in backward fashion, but actually Krishna relishes that more intimate friendship, that association he actually already had with Arjuna and other Pandavas. Um, just a thought came to my mind. Anybody else wants to share anything? If not, we'll move.
Thank you, Mataji, for sharing. Please continue. Go to the next.
Okay, anybody wants to read this?
I can read. Hare Krishna. Yada hi adharmena tamodhya nripa
Yada
यदा यधर्मे
तमोऽन्यो
तमिति
जीवन्ति तत्र सहि satvata kila
जीवन्ति तत्रेष हि सत्त्वतः
धत्ते भगं सत्यमृतं दयां यशो
धत्ते भगं
Bhagam
दयं
Satyam
यशो
Dayam Rasho
भवाय रूपाणि ददाद्युगे युगे
भावाय रूपाणि ददाति युगे युगे.
Translation. Whenever there are kings and administrators living like animals in the lowest modes of existence, the Lord in his transcendental form manifests his supreme power, the truth positive, shows special mercy to the faithful, performs wonderful activities, and manifests various transcendental forms as is necessary in different periods and ages. Hare Krishna. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Jai Srila Prabhupada. As mentioned above, the cosmic creation is the property of the Supreme Lord. This is the basic philosophy of Ishopanishad. Everything is the property of the Supreme Being. No one should encroach upon the property of the Supreme Lord. One should accept only what is kindly awarded by him. Therefore, the earth or any other planet or universe is the absolute property of the Lord. The living beings are certainly his parts and parcels, or sons, and thus every one of them has a right to live at the mercy of the Lord to execute his prescribed work. No one, therefore, can encroach upon the right of another individual man or animal without being so sanctioned by the Lord. The king or the administrator is the representative of the Lord to look after the management of the Lord's will. He must, therefore, be a recognized person like Maharaj Yudhishthir or Parikshit. Such kings have full responsibility and knowledge from authorities about the administration of the world. But at times, due to the influence of the ignorance mode of material nature, tamoguna, the lowest of the material modes, kings and administrators, come into power without knowledge and responsibility, and such foolish administrators live like animals for the sake of their own personal interest. The result is that the whole atmosphere becomes surcharged with anarchy and vicious elements, nepotism, bribery, cheating, aggression, and therefore famine, epidemic, war, and similar other disturbing features become prominent in the human society. And the devotees of the Lord or the faithful are persecuted by all means. All these symptoms indicate the time of an incarnation of the Lord to re-establish the principles of religion and to vanquish the maladministrators. This is also confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita. The Lord then appears in his transcendental form without any tinge of material qualities. He descends just to keep the state of his creation in normal condition. The normal condition is that the Lord has provided each and every planet with all the needs of the native living beings. They can happily live and execute their prescribed occupation to attain salvation at the end, following the rules and regulations mentioned in the revealed scriptures. The material world is created to satisfy the whims of Nitya Baddha or everlasting conditioned souls, just as naughty boys are provided with playing cradles. Otherwise, there was no need of the material world. But when they become intoxicated with the power of material science to exploit the resources unlawfully without the sanction of the Lord, and that also only for sense gratification, there is necessity of the Lord's incarnation to chastise the rebellious and to protect the faithful. When he descends, he exhibits superhuman acts just to prove his supreme right, and materialists like Ravan and Hiranyakashipu and Kamsa are sufficiently punished. He acts in a manner which no one can imitate. For example, the Lord, when he appears as Rama, bridged the Indian Ocean. When he appeared as Krishna, from his very childhood, he showed superhuman activities by killing Putna, Agasura, Sakatsura, Kalia, etc. And then his maternal uncle, Kamsa. When he was at Dwarka, he married 16,108 queens, and all of them were blessed with a sufficient number of children. The sum total of his personal family member accounted to be about 100,000, popularly known as the Yaduvansha. And again, during his lifetime, he managed to vanquish them all. He is famous as the Govardhandhari Hari because he lifted at the age of only 7 the hill known as Govardhan. The Lord killed many undesirable kings in his time, and as a Kshatriya, he fought chivalrously. He is famous as asamordhva, unparalleled. No one is equal to or greater than him. Hare Krishna. So, this reminds us of the famous Bhagavad Gita shlokas from the fourth chapter, seventh, eighth, and ninth. And those say that you know um, paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya ch dushkritam dharma sansthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. So just like that, here also in Bhagavatam, here it is described that whenever the kings and administrators, they're acting unlawfully. So normally the kings and administrators, they should be trained from the start, and they also, as we saw, as we see in all the Mahabharata and Ramayana, and God himself comes to show example that as Sri Ram, he was a Kshatriya, but he went to Gurukul to first take the appropriate knowledge, so that when they get to the time of becoming kings, they have all the knowledge and the religious principles so that they can uphold them. So normally that is the way of the Vedic culture, that the kings or the administrators, they are supposed to have this knowledge right from childhood. They are trained accordingly, so that when they do get in a position of power, then they can act according to dharma. But nowadays what happens is there is no such qualification that is needed. We see literally thieves and people who are doing all kind of adharmas. They are the ones who are coming into these positions, and thus there is so much unlawfulness and so much persecution of the devotees of the Lord. And again, that also we know so many stories how devotees are persecuted. And then we also know stories where Krishna himself or through his devotees then comes and saves his or favors his devotees. So um, so the other thing which is mentioned is that when he comes so that he can one, he can have nice transcendental pastimes with his devotees, paritranaya sadhuna. Also, vinashaya cha dushkrita. So to kill all the impious people who are causing all the havoc in the world, and dharma sansthapanarthaya. So to establish religion, he comes and he thus establishes religion. Just at the time of Mahabharat, he established Yudhishthir Maharaj, and that was dharma in this world, as there was a lot of impious things that were happening at the time. So, um, and then of course, when he comes, it describes for Lord Krishna, like and Lord Rama, when he came, he does wonderful activities so that it is for the benefit of actually the general population, the general people, because they can get attracted by his marvelous feats, and thus it is for their benefit that he does them. He doesn't have to do them, but he does it for the benefit of people, the conditioned souls, so that they can get attracted to Krishna and thus get back to Godhead. So get the highest position in life, um, to get back to Godhead. So he does that as it's a special mercy of him actually, that he is doing such wonderful feats, so that the devotees can talk about him, tushanti cha ramanti cha, they can forever talk about his form, qualities, marvelous acts, his pastimes, and thus be happy and finally get back to Godhead. It is also described that why is this material world there? The material world is there because the Jivatmas, they wanted to be rebellious, just like naughty children, right? They, there's a prescribed way things should go in a class, but some naughty children will try to rebel. They will try to not follow the regular rules, and thus sometimes what is done is they are given detention, You go and sit there. So okay. So this is our detention, that we are in this material world now as conditioned souls who wanted to rebel against the it is not that something bad is happening in the class is going on very nicely. So similarly, spiritual world, everything is happening perfectly, but due to envy from Krishna, due to our rebellious nature of the Jivatma, they we wanted to enjoy separate from Krishna. So Krishna is a supreme enjoyer, but when we want to enjoy separate from Krishna, that is when we get into this material world. And this is like the detention center, right? And here, there are some things that are given to engage us to play a little bit. Okay, let's spend your time over here. So just like that, there are some facilities, just like there are some facilities in the jail, you're in the jail, but still there are some facilities. They give you food, they give you, maybe some um, some things to do. There's a routine there that you follow this routine, okay? And if you're good, maybe you get the benefit of doing some kind of extracurricular activity or whatever. So just like that, we are kept in this jail, the material world, by the three modes of material nature and Maya, and we keep getting engrossed in this, so that we forget our original true nature. We forget that we are actually parts and parcel of Krishna, and where we actually belong is with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And this is only the detention center or the jail. And um, thus for our benefit, because we are like those forgotten children who went to the detention center and then they never came back. They forgot. They got so much engrossed in that they never wanted to come back to the class. The teacher comes and says, hey, what are you doing? There's this nice class. You're actually a part of that class. Go back there. There are so many other things you could do over there, learn so much. It will be good for you. The same way Krishna comes as and he takes his he takes his position that he does these wonderful activities so he can attract us. So just for any through his special causeless mercy, he does that, and then he shows special favor towards his devotees. Hare Krishna. So please, devotees, kindly add or mention other points. It's a long purport. I probably covered some of the things, and I must have missed a lot. So please add. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anybody else would like to share?
Mama. Thank you, Prabhuji, for sharing.
We can read one more thing. Would someone like to read this?
I can try, Mataji. Aho alam shlaghayatam kulam.
Aho
Alam shlaghayatamam yadokulam.
Maho alam punyatam madho varnanam.
Maho
alam punyatam madho varnanam.
Yad esha pumsam rishabhashriyapati.
Yadesha pumsam rishabh shriyatpati.
Swajanmana chankramणेन chanchati.
Swajanmana chankramana chanchati.
Translation. Oh, how supremely glorified is the dynasty of King Yadu, and how virtuous is the land of Mathura, where the supreme leader of all living beings, the husband of the goddess of fortune, has taken his birth and wandered in his childhood. Purport. In the Bhagavad Gita, the personality of Godhead Shri Krishna has expressively given a description of his transcendental appearance, disappearance, and activities. The Lord appears in a particular family or place by his inconceivable potency. He does not take his birth as a conditioned soul quits his body and accepts another body. His birth is like the appearance and disappearance of the sun. The sun arises on the eastern horizon, but that does not mean that the eastern horizon is the parent of the sun. The sun is existent in every part of the solar system, but he becomes visible at a scheduled time and so also becomes invisible at another scheduled time. Similarly, the Lord appears in the universe like the sun and again leaves our sight at another time. He exists at all time and every place, but by his causeless mercy, when he appears before us, we take it for granted, and that he has taken his birth. Anyone who can understand this truth in terms of the statements of revealed scriptures certainly becomes liberated just after quitting the present body. Liberation is obtainable after many births and after great endeavor in patience and perseverance, in knowledge and renunciation. But simply by knowing in truth about the Lord's transcendental birth and activities, one can get liberation at once. But simply by knowing in truth about the Lord's transcendental birth and activity, one can get liberation at once. That is the verdict of Bhagavad Gita. But those who are in the darkness of ignorance conclude that the Lord's birth and activity in the material world are similar to those of the ordinary living beings. Such imperfect conclusions cannot give anyone liberation. His birth, therefore, in the family of King Yadu, as the son of King Vasudev, and his transfer into the family of Nanda Maharaj in the land of Mathura are all transcendental arrangements made by the internal potency of the Lord. The fortunes, the fortunes of the Yadu dynasty and that of the inhabitants of the land of Mathura cannot be materially estimated. If simply by knowing the transcendental nature of the birth and activities of the Lord, one can get liberation easily, we can just imagine what is in store for those who actually enjoyed the company of the Lord in person as a family member or as a neighbor. Very good. All those who were fortunate enough to associate with the Lord, the husband of the goddess of fortune, certainly obtained something more than what is known as liberation. Therefore, rightly, the dynasty and the land are both ever glorious by the grace of Lord. Hare Krishna. So Prabhupada is very nicely explained here that Krishna, if we think that Krishna takes a birth and he's just like any other any other living entity, that is because we have a very limited knowledge to understand what Krishna is. But it is very easy to understand Krishna by the revealed scriptures. And it is very easy to attain Krishna with the mentioned here by knowing the transcendental activities and birth of Krishna, to accept him as a Lord, Supreme Lord of the universe. of the Godhead. But it's not easy for a person who just consider him as a normal living being. Prabhupada has given example here, like Atul Prabhu also explained a few days ago, that the sun is always present. Maybe some in certain parts of country, when it's in the world, when it disappears, it appears in a different part of the world. So we cannot say that the sun does not exist. Prabhupada also saying that is always present in the solar system. It is existent there, but because we do not have we cannot see in the universe. We can just see where we stay. So for us it disappears. But Krishna is like the sun. He was always present because he's the cause of all the causes. And then Prabhupada is saying that but when Krishna actually comes and takes birth by his causeless mercy, he appears in front of us. We take it very, for granted. Anyone can understand the truth in terms of statement of revealed scriptures. So in Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita and other in Krishna book and all other Leelas, we read that how it is explained that how Krishna takes birth. And it is transcendental, but it is we cannot understand with our limited knowledge. And then Prabhupada is saying that if by listening to his transcendental pastime or accepting him as a person, supreme personality of Godhead, one can get the liberation, then think about the people or the family where he took birth or he spent his childhood. And people were so lucky, for so fortunate to be Krishna's parents, be Krishna's friends. So there is no comparison. We cannot even compare. So, and they are above this liberation. So like we have heard in many lectures, and Prabhuji also explained that the pure devotee doesn't want liberation. The pure devotee always want the association of Lord. They always want the bhakti, like how they can serve Krishna. For them, liberation is nothing, and they don't want it. So the same way, those people in Mathura, that land is so divine, that land is so fortunate, and those people were so fortunate where Krishna took birth. And it's very easy to understand him, but as Prabhuji just Nebe Prabhu explained, that we chose to stay away from him. He's always calling us, he's always telling us, and that's why he sent his Nitya Mukta associate from his abode to this material world, that to teach us, to tell us how we can go back. But for us, because we choose this path not to go closer to Krishna, not to accept him, but rather we chose mundane things or very temporary things which can make us happy above over Krishna. That is why we suffer here. That is why we are in this world. But it is then Prabhupada saying that liberation is obtainable after many births and after great endeavor in patience and perseverance, in knowledge and renunciation. So liberation also is not easy. It takes many lifetimes to be perfect. So for that, one has to have patience, and patience is the key for bhakti. So like we struggle. I mean, I struggle for chanting and so many other things. But every day reminding yourself that we cannot just one day if we are not able to do something like proper chanting, and one day if our mind is roaming here and there, but then we have to bring it back. But if you are not successful in that, because we have this memory, we have these past karmas and memories accumulated for so many lifetimes, it is not easy to forget them. It is not very easy to be in to be in bhakti. But that struggle is the key, that you should have that patience, that okay Krishna, maybe one day I may be able to do something for you. I may be able to serve you perfectly the way you want. And I want to struggle for you. Prabhuji explained, like how the struggle for the material, we struggle a lot for the material thing, because if we are here in this material, we have to struggle for everything. For normal a person who goes to work, he also or she also have to wake up in the morning. Maybe some people wake up by 5, some by 6, but they also have to do it. Some are doing it even early for their business because they are so successful. They are also struggling. But why not we struggle for our devotional life? Because this is which will lead us close to Krishna and help us to go back to our home. But rather struggle with the material thing we choose, and then we end up uh, uh, dying with all those desires and everything, and then we have to come back. So this practice is for the last moment we have, for the last time we'll have, for the last second we'll have, when we leave this body. This practice is very, very important. So Prabhupada has very nicely explained here that that understanding Krishna, because you just need love for Krishna. Otherwise there is no other requirement for bhakti. Like there are many requirements when we go to other fields, or we want to do something success in other fields. There's so many things you have to do for so many years. But for bhakti, to start bhakti, there's one prerequisite is just love for Krishna. And if you have that, Krishna will help you. And that's what Prabhupada is trying to explain here. That Krishna comes here in this world to reciprocate with his bhaktas, and that he does because of his causeless mercy. Otherwise, he has a very good administration like Brahmaji and Vishnu and Vishnu Bhagwan and Shiv Bhagwan to manage this whole universe. But he comes himself just to reciprocate. So we can also try our best to be in the queue, and that's Prabhupada is trying to tell here, and that's my understanding. Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, Mataji, please correct or add. Hare Bol.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji, so much. Yeah, so I think this is, I pulled up the shloka actually from Bhagavad Gita 4.9, because Prabhupada is elaborating in the whole purport about this this verse from Bhagavad Gita, that it is how important it is to understand the transcendental nature of the appearance, disappearance, and activities of Krishna. And that is a path to liberation. And Krishna says that himself. जन्म कर्म च मे दिव्यम् एवं यो वेत्ति तत्त्वता त्यक्त्वा देहं पुनर्जन्म नयेति मामेति. So Arjuna, that whoever understands the transcendental nature of my appearance, disappearance, and activities, after leaving his body, he will not get the next birth and he'll achieve me. So one who knows the transcendental nature upon leaving the body takes his birth in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. So Prabhupada is saying that is otherwise liberation is so hard. It takes many births, it takes so much patience, so much endeavor, so much perseverance, so much knowledge, austerities, renunciation, whatnot. But if you just simply, such a simple path Krishna has mentioned, just simply understand the transcendental nature of my birth and activities, and you can get liberation at once. In this purport also, Prabhupada has elaborated the same thing, that he simply by accepting this truth on faith, one can without a doubt attain liberation. And what is that truth? That Supreme Lord is eternally engaged in many, many transcendental forms in relationships with his unalloyed devotees. So basically, that is the straight, very easy path to liberation that Krishna has mentioned. And it is unfortunate for us that, despite having access to this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, we start believing in some God men or some other fake imposters that say that we are God, and we start following them, and instead we call Krishna as he's just some Mahapurush. Even after reading Bhagavad Gita, like when people are not reading from proper authority, they'll say, okay, this karma yoga is the superior, or this is how Krishna died, this is how he took birth, this is and they condemn his activities. It's such so unfortunate that it is so expressively, like Prabhupada is so expressively given in Bhagavad Gita, that understand that my activities, my appearance, my disappearance, everything is transcendental. So the material rules don't apply to him. He comes and goes as he pleases. He comes to engage in relationships with his devotees. He does not have any activities to perform, yet he does all these leelas just to attract us. And yet, we people are condemning, blaspheming um, all the transcendental activities of Krishna, and this is also mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna says in 9th chapter that avjananti mamumura manusham tanum ashritam param bhavam ajananto mam bhut maheshwaram, that foolish people deride me when I come as a human in human form, because they're unaware of my supreme nature. Param uh, ajananto mam bhut maheshwaram, that they do not know my supreme nature, that I am the supreme personality of Godhead. Mam bhut maheshwaram, that I am the supreme controller, supreme Ishwar. So that is one criteria, that is straight path to liberation that Krishna has outlined. Such an important verse, that this is why I come, understand my transcendental nature, understand that I'm above and beyond these material laws. I'm not bound by those material rules that we operate in. And yet we decide to compare him to mundane people and his activities to ourselves, and start fitting him in our box of understanding and our frame of reference. So, with this purport again, Prabhupada is saying that one must, first qualification is to understand that Krishna is Supreme Personality of Godhead and He's transcendental. That's all I wanted to share. Anybody else wants to share anything? Or add anything? If not, we can finish. It's over time already. Is that okay?
Yes, Mataji.
Okay, shall we chant Hare Krishna?
Sure.
Okay, chant 11 times. Hare Krishna, Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Hare
Krishna
Krishna,
Krishna,
Krishna
Hare
Krishna,
Hare,
Hare Hare,
Hare